everyone. It's KB. Well, Pile Driver Wrestling Podcast. Hey, today we want to get into a two-time Hall of Famer. We want to talk about somebody that's a living legend and someone who is known as the GOAT, the greatest of all time. But before we do me a favor. Click, like, and subscribe. And turn on those notification buttons. That way you'll never miss anything here on the PDR Podcast. Hey, thanks for tuning in today on the Old School Podcast. You know my saying, the old school paved the way for the new school. And we're going to get into the greatest of all time, who is none other than Ric Whoooo Flair. Man, Ric Flair is the greatest of all time. A great in-ring performer. If you've never watched Ric Flair, then you're not a wrestling fan, because this guy has been all over the world. New Japan, All Japan, WCW, NWA, AWA, TNA, WWF, WWE. You know, he's been everywhere. You name it. This guy has wrestled everywhere, all over the world. And I tell you, man, he is the greatest of all time. We'll kind of get into his accomplishment. But if you knew Ric was, he had a bit of a flair about himself. His ring entrances, when he hit and that music dropped, people would stand on their feet and instantly start doing the woo, woo, woo. And they were constantly doing it over and over because, again, this guy was a great ring performer. I love, man, when he would get in the ring and, he would bleed and that bleached blonde hair would get all bloody. I love it when he flipped over the ring and then they would clothesline him outside of the ring. He knew how to sell a match for sure, man. His job was to make other people look good, and he was great at doing that. He would get somebody over in a minute. But he was also known as the dirtiest player in the game. And because of that, he won 21 championships. I know that people say 16-time, he's a 16-time world champ. But he actually is a 21-time world champ because they didn't, quote unquote, recognize those, territories as him being a champion. Back in the day. But really, if you go back and listen to some of his podcasts, he'll tell you 16. I know we just celebrated John Cena winning his 17, but Ric Flair said, hey, that's not actually numbers, but I'm going to give him his flowers anyway, because Cena has put into work, and so nobody's really passed Flair in championships, and they probably won't, probably not even in my lifetime. So let's get into Ric Flair. Let's talk about, he was from North Carolina. He's 76-year-old. Even at 76, I promise you, Ric Flair probably can perform better than some of these young bucks even now. So he's just that great of, a person. But I loved his catchphrase. One of his catchphrases that said he was a Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. And I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. And so he was just known as coming up with great promos. Man, he was great on that microphone. Not only was he a great wrestler, but he was a great promo cutter. Man, he could do it. Man, there were so many lines that you can go back and look at. Maybe drop in the comments, what lines you remember Ric Flair doing. Again, this guy was so good that he was a two-time Hall of Famer. Most people don't get that two-time Hall of Fame status, but Ric Flair has gotten, to be a two-time Hall of Famer once as himself, and the second time was with the Four Horsemen, which was the greatest faction of all time, in my opinion. I know other people may think Evolution and all these different Nexus and all these different ones are great. I'm not taking away from them, but I'm telling you, in my opinion, the Four Horsemen were the greatest of all time. So, but Ric Flair has some amazing matches. Some of them you remember. Some of them were the greatest. I'm going to talk about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Him and Ricky, man, had that chemistry together. Man, what great matches him and Ricky Steamboat had. He had great ones with Vader. If you know Vader, Undertaker, he's having great matches with Shawn Michaels, Sting. The list goes on and on. Who this guy has wrestled. Lex Luger. Fantastic matches. I mean, who hasn't Rick faced and really, Hogan as well. He's faced Hogan. So great matches. But Steamboat was definitely, one of the greatest that he wrestled. They, put on a great match. Sting, in my opinion, was great as well. Especially, I can't remember. It's about 1990 something. I can't remember. I should have looked this up, but during that time, he would. There was a character called the Black Scorpion, and he would come over the intercom and mess Sting up, and Sting would lose matches because of this guy. And so at the pay-per-view, I can't remember what the name of the pay-per-view was, Starcade or maybe even Halloween Havoc or something, but everybody was all up in arms who the Black Scorpion was, because we would see different people, tall, short, stature. We're trying to figure it out. But at the end of that match, Ric Flair got the mask ripped. They ripped the mask off him. It revealed that it was Ric Flair, and so the Black Scorpion was him and Sting, and they picked up, kind of right where they left off. And to me, that was a great storyline, great time, to kind of bring Ric Flair back. But again, Ric Flair was a great champion. He just didn't have 21 world heavyweight champions. He actually had the Intercontinental Championships, Tag Team Champions. I mean, you name it. This guy's gotten Wrestler of the Year, Feud of the Year. You look at all of Ric Flair's accomplishments. I'd be on here another 10, 15 minutes talking about his accomplishments. But one of the things that I always love for him to talk about, he used to talk about, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And so that's what he relied on. If you want me and my title, you're gonna have to ante up. You're gonna have to be the big boy here. And if you want to be the man, you're gonna have to beat the man. And so he was great at that. A funny segment, that I would have to say was in TNA when he joined TNA, and Jay Lethal and him were going back and forth, and Jay talked a lot like Ric Flair, and that was one of the funniest segments, that I've seen, Ric Flair do. He's done a lot of funny things, but that was one of the funniest things. They actually made a lot of memes out of it, but it's really, that was great entertainment. So, drop it in the comments, about the matches, the things that you remember. I've watched Ric Flair, many times wrestle, in person, not just on television, but in person. But again, drop it in the comments. We want to hear what maybe some of the things that you remember about Ric Flair. But Ric Flair, thank you for being such a great entertainer. And that's all I got on this podcast. And we hope that you tune in next week as we talk about somebody else here on the PDR podcast. We'll catch y'all next week on the Old School Friday.